Parshas Ki Seitzei, Tavshin Ayin Vav. We're now about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to Rosh Hashanah, and it's creeping closer every day. And like we said in the past few weeks, as much as we think about the Parsha, each week we're going to try to bring out a lesson for Elul, for Rosh Hashanah, from the Parsha, and to give us just a little bit practical advice how to approach Rosh Hashanah, how to do the right thing during Elul. And in this week's Parsha, Ki Seitzei Elul al oivecha, u'nisanoi Hashem alekecha biyadecha, v'shavisa shivyoi. First pasuk in the Parsha. And it's interesting to see just how many pieces and pages the Nesivos Shalom devotes to this one pasuk. Now, most of the time, in the Nesivos Shalom, if you look through on each Parsha, so the Nesivos Shalom hits a lot of different parts of the Parsha. And here, Nesivos Shalom hits a few parts of the Parsha, but this first pasuk of Ki Seitzei, he speaks about at length, and speaks about in many, many different ways. And I look back at the shiurim of the past years that we've had, and Baruch Hashem we have now, this is year number 7, we're almost finishing, in another month or two we'll be finished year number 7. So we have spoken a lot about this Parsha, and we've really learned so many of the angles and the lessons that the Nesivos Shalom teaches us from this pasuk. And the Nesivos Shalom tells us that Ki Seitzei, the word Ki Seitzei, and the meaning of Ki Seitzei, and there's an underlying theme that runs through every piece of the Nesivos Shalom here, and that Ki Seitzei is talking about not something which has happened many years ago, but Ki Seitzei is talking to us in the present. Ki Seitzei la milchama refers to the war that every single one of us has to get up every day and do and have with the Yetzer Hara. And that's Ki Seitzei la milchama. When each person personally goes out to their war. And we've spoken about this inyan the past couple of years. So I was thinking what we're going to do this year, and I thought about it, and I decided that we're just going to continue to do that, because as much as we've spoken about it, there's even more to think about. And this overall theme that we are discussing about going out to war, and like we said, it's the war for each and every individual. And this war really consists of a war that goes on every minute of every day. There's no relaxation, and there's no letting down from this war. The battle with the Yetzer Hara is an ongoing battle every single minute that we're alive. And the Torah continues the pasuk by saying, Ki Seitzei milchama alevecha. You're going to go out for war with your enemies. U'nisanoi Hashem alekecha biyadai. So the pasuk is telling us that when you go out to war, Hashem is, so to speak, going to give the enemies over to you, which means that you're going to be victorious. So, how do we understand this? If we're saying that Ki Seitzei is talking about the war with the Yetzer Hara, how do we understand that the pasuk says you're going to be victorious? So the Nesivos Shalom tells us a very interesting thing. And he says that the pasuk is telling us also the only way to be victorious with the Yetzer Hara. And this is a good lesson 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, and we're trying to fight our Yetzer Hara. The only way to attain this level of unisanai, where we're going to win with the Yetzer Hara, says in the Nesivos Shalom, is if you actually do the Ki Seitzei. If you're proactive, if you go out and take the battle to the enemy, and take the battle to the Yetzer Hara. If you sit back and say, okay, whenever the Yetzer Hara comes, okay, then we'll struggle, and then hopefully I'll win at the end. Many times, if the Yetzer Hara, you have to go to the battle before the Yetzer Hara comes to start up with you. You have to be ready to be proactive, to be aggressive, to be the positive one, to be the one who goes out and during every time and every stage of your life, you go out and you take the battle to the Yetzer Hara before he comes and actually entices you and battles you. And the Gemara Masechta Brachos, Daf Hey Amud Aleph tells us, L'olam yargiz adam yetzer toiv al yetzer hara. That a person every day and constantly, the Gemara says, you should always look to have it out with the Yetzer Hara. Go and create a war, create a battle between your Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. Why? So Nesivos Shalom explains the Gemara, because once the Yetzer Hara comes to you to fight, then you don't have the Yishuv Adas. You don't have you can't think calmly. You can't think rationally. You don't have the Yishuv Adas to do the battle. Okay, so very good. I just told you some wonderful things about having a battle with Yetzer Hara. How do we go about applying this to our own lives? How do we go about to actually carrying this out? And the Nesivos Shalom points to Rashi. Rashi says, when we say, Ki Seitzei Elul aloivecha, what kind of a war are we talking about, says Rashi? What kind of a war are we saying that you're going to go out to fight? So Rashi tells us, the Melchemes Rishus HaKosav Medaber. The Pasuk is not talking about a Melchemes Mitzvah, where you have a commandment in the Torah, where you have a commandment to go out and do battle. Rashi says the Pasuk is talking about the Melchemes Rishus HaKosav Medaber. And a Melchama, that is Rishus. It's, so to speak, sort of optional. Well, we want to go out to war. And we know that when we translate this into a battle with the Yetzer Hara, it means the Melchemes Rishus HaKosav Medaber. When we talk about the battle that we have with the Yetzer Hara, the battle that we have most is not in things that we know that are usher. We read the Torah tells us you can't eat certain animals. Most of us do not have a Yetzer Hara to go ahead and eat an animal that's not kosher. The Torah tells you specifically, of course sometimes we do get a Yetzer Hara for that, but the biggest battle with the Yetzer Hara, says in Nesivos Shalom, is like a play on words with what Rashi says. Melchemes Rishus HaKosav Medaber. The war with the Yetzer Hara takes place in things of Gashmias. People running after too much Gashmias. People being involved in the pursuit of things which don't bring you closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A battle with things that, like we've mentioned many times, that are technically mutter. And we need to know, a person has to know that even if it's mutter, every addition of Gashmias that we take on in our lives, even if it's mutter, takes our focus away from Ruchnias, and it distances us from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's just a fact of life, says in Nesivos Shalom. That even if something is mutter, but if you're running after and getting more Gashmias, and the focus of your life is on Gashmias, if you're focused on those kind of things, then you're not focused on your connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the tachlis, the tachlis of every Yid, of every Jew, is Dveikus B'Hashem. Every one of the mitzvahs is meant to bring us closer to Hashem. And if we're busy with Gashmias, if we're busy doing things, those of Gashmias, those things do not have to do with Dveikus Hashem. They distance us from Hashem. They do not bring us closer. And any Gashmias, including those of Heter, causes distance between a Jew and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that way, we need to take the fight to the Yetzer Hara. We need to be aware that we have to start with things that are actually technically mutter. Those things are distancing us from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is Ki Seitzei. That is what we're referring to at the beginning of this week's parsha. Ki Seitzei and Unisonoi. That you will become more connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you go out to war with the Yetzer Hara and what we have, that's always pulling us to Gashmias, then Unisonai Hashem Alikecha B'Yadecha. Then Hashem will make the Yetzer Hara easier for you to conquer. You become more connected to Hashem, and you'll be able to triumph in your battle with the Yetzer Hara. The Nesivos Shalom tells us that the time really to take advantage of this, the time to take advantage of getting us 1 foot up on the Yetzer Hara, is right now during this month of Elul. This time of the year, when naturally people become more aware of what we're doing and we become much more sensitive to what we're doing, it's this time of the year that you have to know that you're paying much more attention to how you act anyway. So it's during this time when you need to do this Ki Seitzei, when you need to do this going out to battle the Yetzer Hara and make up our minds now in Elul that we're going to fight the Yetzer Hara until the end, that we're going to take the fight for everything, for things that are usher and for things that are mutter. And if we train ourselves during Elul to do those things, then the pasuk tells us, Unesana, he said, if you're going to go out and be proactive and take the fight to the Seitzei Elul, Hashem is telling you that I'll give you siyata d'shmaya the rest of the year. At the time now where you're more serious and you're being busy with tshuva and you're being busy with fighting the Seitzei Elul, then unesanai. Hashem is saying, you do it for me, I will do it for you, and I will give you the koyach the entire year. When you're not being so aware, Hashem will give us the strength to fight with the Seitzei Elul. And the Kabbalahs that we make now will stand with us later. And this is, everybody always wants a school. People make so many Kabbalahs during Elul, during Rosh Hashanah. Our Seitzei make tshuva, they make so many Kabbalahs. One of the schools of keeping your Kabbalah the whole year is to actually be serious about it. To be serious about your battle with the Seitzei Elul now. The more serious you are about doing this during Elul, the more siyata d'shmaya you get. And the idea that we're learning this week is not to wait for the Seitzei Elul to battle you. You go out and take the battle, take advantage of Elul, and it trains us really for the entire year. And one of the ways to do this, another piece of advice that Nesivos Shalom tells us, is ki seitzei milchama al oivecha. You have to treat this war with the Seitzei Elul not like you're having a little argument with your friend. Ki seitzei milchama al oivecha. You have to treat it just as you would treat a war with your enemies. And when you have a war with your enemies, you don't just try to pinpoint one little thing here, one little thing there. It's an overall and comprehensive plan for victory. And when a person's coming to Rosh Hashanah, you have 2.5 weeks now, it has to be a ki seitzei milchama al oivecha. What do you do in a war room? You sit there, you size up the enemy, you plan a battle that today I'm going to battle it this way, and tomorrow I'm going to battle it another way, and I'm going to be stronger on this side, or stronger in this thing. We have a battle plan. Ki seitzei milchama al oivecha. You have to fight the Seitzei Elul just as you would fight your enemy. And one way to do that is a very famous theme that the Nesivos Shalom speaks about many times, and that we know from the pasuk that David HaMelech says, Sur me'ra v'asei toiv. What does it mean, Sur me'ra v'asei toiv? Some people say, stop doing bad and start doing good. But Nesivos Shalom says it a different way. You know what you do? A person has averos that he's accumulated throughout the year. You know what you do? You overwhelm any averos you have. You know how? Yes, you have to do tshuva on averos. Yes, you have to be sur me'ra. But most important is, you know how you sur me'ra? By asei toiv. Do as much good. Do an abundance of good. Everything that you could do. You do Torah, but not just Torah. You do avodah also, and not just Torah and avodah. You be busy with gemilas chasadim. And every deed that you do, and every minute that you learn, that weakens the Seitzei Elul. So sur me'ra v'asei toiv means now is the time. Yes, you have to think about what you did the whole year, but it's not a time to get depressed about it. Oh, I did this, because that's exactly what the Seitzei Elul wants. The Seitzei Elul wants you to spend the next 2 weeks being depressed about everything that you did over the past year. Because if you're depressed, you're never going to get anywhere. If it gets you down, so Nesivos Shalom tells us, sur me'ra, but how? V'asei toiv. Get busy doing things. Yes, you have time to think about that you're doing tshuva for what you did, but get busy learning Torah. Get busy with chesed. Get busy fixing up your midos, like we spoke about. That's what you really have to do first. Get busy with all those things through asei toiv, and through that we have a path, a derech, to this ki seitzei milchama al oivecha. That we're going to treat it like a war. We're going to have a strategy. We're going to come to Rosh Hashanah. When you walk into shul this Rosh Hashanah, you're going to be prepared. You know why? Because you have a map in front of you. You have a battle plan. And you would have already had, since this year, 2.5 weeks of doing good things. And when you do a lot of good, memela, you're going to overwhelm any of the bad you might have done. Let's start to take these lessons. Let's get the lessons that we've learned from this week's parsha, how to go to battle. And by the time Rosh Hashanah comes 2 weeks from now, we're going to be ready for that real battle.